In our headlines on this Friday, July 31st, here in South Korea. South Korea and Chile agreed to restart talks on upgrading their free trade agreement as President Lee Jae-myung and President Jose Antonio Kast seek to strengthen economic ties during their summit in Santiago. Here at home, the South Korean stock market stages a solid comeback on this Friday, soaring well over 17% as investors respond optimistically to overnight gains on Wall Street. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says that a deal has been drawn for Hamas to disarm and for Israel to withdraw from Gaza, but uncertainty remains. Trade topped the agenda as President Lee Jae-myung and President Jose Antonio Kast met in Santiago, that is, where the two leaders agreed to revive talks on updating their free trade agreement after a decade. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
The summit began with an official welcome at the presidential palace in Santiago for the South Korean first couple. President Lee was the first Korean president to visit Chile in 11 years. Upgrading the bilateral free trade agreement was a focal point of Thursday's summit between President Lee Jae-myung and his Chilean counterpart, Jose Antonio Kast. Chile was the first country to sign an FTA with South Korea in 2004, and the deal hasn't been updated since then.
양국은 한칠레 FTA 자유무역위원회를 10년 만에 재가동하여 통상 투자 현안을 점검하고 호혜적인 한칠레 FTA 개선 등을 포함한 양국의 통상관계 증진 방안에 대해서 협의해 나가기로 하였습니다.
We agreed to resume the Korea-Chile Free Trade Commission, last held 10 years ago, to seek a roadmap to modernize and upgrade bilateral ties to a higher level.
They also held in-depth discussions over major economic frameworks, including the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Pacific Alliance. The leaders also agreed to promote partnership in critical mineral supply chains, for which an MOU was signed for cooperation on mineral resources.
세계 1위 구리 생산국이자 1위 리튬 매장국인 주요 자원 부국 칠레와 반도체, 배터리 등 첨단 산업 선도국인 우리 한국은 핵심 광물 공급망 구축에 있어서 자연스럽고 이상적인 파트너임이 분명합니다.
On infrastructure, Lee and Kast also agreed to further cooperate on the Chacao Bridge building project, Chile's flagship national project, in which a South Korean builder is taking part. MOUs were signed for cooperation on Antarctic research and maritime safety.
Chile aims to make inroads into the South Pole. I once again invite President Lee to visit the South Pole, together with me. As for cooperation on icebreakers, I hope to contribute more for greater technological advancement.
Cooperation on science and technology, people-to-people exchanges, and K-culture will be further promoted. He asked his Chilean counterpart for unwavering support for resolving North Korea's nuclear issues, and Kast agreed to work together for peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. On Friday, President Lee will hold a summit with Argentine President Javier Milei over in Buenos Aires, the final leg of his three-nation trip to South America. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Santiago.
And here at home, the South Korean stock market staged a solid comeback today as investors reacted to overnight gains on Wall Street. Our Kim Jun-hong covers Friday's trade.
Korea's stock market saw a sharp double-digit gain on Friday, rebounding from days of steep losses. The benchmark KOSPI closed 17.91% higher at 6,595.45. The index gained more than 1,000 points in a single day, setting a new record by surpassing the 11.95% rise seen during the 2008 global financial crisis. Trading opened with a sharp rally, prompting buy-side sidecars on both the KOSPI and Kosdaq minutes after the opening bell. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also saw a sharp rise, closing 11.63% higher. Overnight gains in U.S. semiconductor shares spilled over into Korean stocks, with Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix leading the way. The two closed 26% and 29% up respectively. The turnaround followed Microsoft's solid earnings overnight, which eased concerns over the durability of AI investment. Rebound buying fueled the rally, with foreign investors returning as heavy buyers after weeks of selling.
Friday's rally came as investors returned to an oversold market. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix had suffered sharp declines in recent sessions, but as some of the concerns eased, bargain buying quickly gained momentum.
The KOSPI has undergone sharp fluctuations since climbing above the 9,300 mark in late June. After 3 straight days of heavy selling sent the index down to the 5,500 level by Thursday's close, Friday's gains brought a dramatic reversal. Analysts say next month's regulatory changes for overseas leveraged products could help reduce market volatility.
Hong Kong-listed leveraged ETFs tied to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix fueled foreign buying in the Korean market, but also amplified volatility. New leverage caps taking effect next week are expected to reduce ETF-driven intraday swings.
Still, some warn it is too soon to call full recovery in semiconductor investment sentiment. Concerns over the sustainability of AI spending and an uncertain U.S. economic outlook are expected to leave the market's near-term direction unclear. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Korean economy saw a strong monthly rebound in June as production, consumption and investment all returned to growth. Park Chun-han has details.
The Korean economy delivered a broadly positive set of triple growth numbers in June, with production, consumption and investment all rising for the first time in 3 months. According to data released by the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Friday, overall industrial production jumped 2.3% from the previous month. This marks the sharpest monthly increase in 6 years, rebounding from May's fall of 0.3% due to a base effect in semiconductor production. June's growth was largely driven by a 4.5% rebound in semiconductor output and a massive 15.4% jump in automobile production. The ministry explained that the auto sector benefited from the normalization of parts supply and strong demand driven by the launch of new models of car. Retail sales, a key indicator of private consumption, also climbed 2.7%. This was backed by robust automobile purchases and special promotional events by major tech companies like Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics, which boosted demand for home appliances and computers.
June's industrial activity saw a 6.4% increase in production from the previous month, driven largely by a 15.4% jump in automobile output as parts supply normalized. This not only boosted production, but also lifted retail sales of passenger vehicles and increased facility investment in the auto sector.
Facility investment also grew 5.8% compared to the previous month. The increase was largely due to heavy investments in machinery for semiconductor manufacturing and transportation equipment. With all 3 major sectors showing a steady rebound, the positive momentum could revitalize broader domestic industries moving forward. However, if external uncertainties continue to persist and escalate further, the positive output seen in June could lose momentum and negatively affect the second half of the year. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
The government will launch a Korean-style strategic sovereign wealth fund worth over $14 billion next year. According to the Finance Ministry on this Friday, the fund will invest in key strategic industries including aerospace, artificial intelligence, defense and semiconductors. The initiative aims to secure stable, long-term investment returns by leveraging government assets and capturing the growing interest of global investors. Investment returns will be shared with the public by utilizing operating profits for reinvestment, government dividends, and national treasury returns. U.S. President Donald Trump claims Hamas has agreed to fully disarm, but regional tensions remain in place as renewed U.S. and Iranian military strikes raise fresh concerns about a broader confrontation. An Sung-jin has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump says Hamas has agreed to fully disarm, describing the move as a historic breakthrough toward lasting peace in Gaza. In a post on Truth Social, Trump announced that the Board of Peace, an organization he established to oversee Gaza's reconstruction, had reached an agreement with Hamas and other groups in the enclave for their complete disarmament. Trump called the deal a monumental step that would pave the way for Gaza to be governed by a new Palestinian administration working alongside the Board of Peace to rebuild the territory. Hamas confirmed the agreement, marking a major shift after years of rejecting calls to disarm. A senior Hamas official told the BBC that they have agreed to completely disarm in Gaza, as a new National Committee for the Administration of Gaza will now oversee the registration, storage, and management of all weapons. This organization will become the sole authority permitted to possess or control arms in Gaza, while Hamas's negotiator said Israel will have no role in the disarmament process. However, Israel has yet to officially endorse the agreement. U.S. officials told reporters that President Trump would be very disappointed if Israel failed to uphold to the agreement. Meanwhile, the fragile pause in fighting between the United States and Iran has come to an abrupt end, with both sides continuing military strikes. Both sides fired barrages of missiles on Thursday, with the U.S. military saying it launched attacks against military command centers and missile facilities after Iran fired missiles at U.S. bases in the region. The conflict is now spreading beyond the Persian Gulf and Red Sea, with 2 vessels struck by drones near Egypt, and Saudi Arabia already joining its first joint military operation with U.S. forces in the Red Sea. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy believes that Russia deployed a North Korean missile for an overnight assault, marking the first time such a weapon has been launched in nearly a year. According to foreign media outlets, including Reuters, Zelenskyy acknowledged that further investigation would be needed to confirm this belief. Nonetheless, he strongly denounced Pyongyang and Moscow for the alleged attack that took at least 9 lives, including those of 2 children. Prime Minister Han Sang-suk has called for continued vigilance within government agencies as the current dangerous heat is set to worsen next week. Speaking at a related meeting earlier on this Friday, she also called for efforts to ease the impact of the prolonged heat wave for vulnerable groups, including the elderly, as well as outdoor and delivery workers, while closely monitoring water supplies in drought-prone areas. Members of the public have also been asked to avoid outdoor activities during the hottest part of the day. Meanwhile, another day of dangerous heat is unfolding across South Korea after record-breaking temperatures pushed parts of the southeast above 40 degrees Celsius for a second day in a row. Our Sejong covers the scorching weather.
The intense summer heat is expected to continue through the final day of July, with dangerously high temperatures and tropical nights gripping most of South Korea. Record-breaking heat continued across the country's southeast on Thursday. In Yangsan, the mercury reached 40.3 degrees Celsius for the second straight day, marking the first time since 2018 that a location in South Korea recorded temperatures above 40 degrees on consecutive days. It was also the highest temperature ever recorded there since weather observations began. Nearby cities also saw historic heat. Kimhae climbed to 39 degrees Celsius, its hottest July day on record, while Busan followed Wednesday's all-time high of 38.8 degrees with another blistering 38.3 degrees, making it the city's second hottest day ever. Changwon and Ulsan also recorded some of their highest temperatures since modern weather records began. The Korea Meteorological Administration says Friday will remain extremely hot, with daytime highs ranging from 32 to 37 degrees Celsius. Most of the country is expected to endure another day of intense heat and tropical nights, with mostly sunny skies in the south and on Jeju Island. Health officials are urging people to take extra precautions as the prolonged heat wave continues. Since mid-May, more than 1,600 people have been treated for heat-related illnesses, with 12 deaths. Although the total number of people affected is lower than during the same period last year, the death toll is already close to last year's figure, indicating that this summer's heat has led to more severe cases. Forecasters warn the dangerous conditions are likely to persist, with little relief expected in the coming days. Sejong, Arirang News.
In other news now, South Korea is planning to turn K-pop's global appeal into an annual music celebration as the construction of a venue exclusively for K-pop concerts nears completion. Our Cho Young-eun files this report.
As Blackpink headlines Coachella, Stray Kids take over Lollapalooza Chicago, and BTS draws massive crowds in Seoul, K-pop continues to dominate some of the world's biggest stages. But while fans travel the world for major music festivals, Korea has never had a venue designed to bring global fans to the birthplace of K-pop. That is set to change with Seoul Arena, construction now well underway in the capital's Dobong-gu district. Scheduled to open in the first half of next year, South Korea's first large-scale venue dedicated to K-pop music will seat around 18,000 people with a maximum capacity of 28,000.
Once completed, Seoul Arena is expected to become more than just a concert venue. It aims to be a global hub for live entertainment, attracting major international events and music fans from around the world.
The festival, called Phenomenon, will be held from December 2nd through the 12th next year at Seoul Arena and Kintex in Goyang, Gyeongsangnam-do Province. Combining the words fan and phenomenon to convey the meaning fan-created phenomenon, the event will include K-pop concerts featuring artists from the rosters of SMYG, JYP, and HYBE, and a fan awards ceremony.
Simply put, Phenomenon is a large-scale K-culture festival that brings together the strengths of Korea's diverse cultural industries.
According to the Cultural Ministry, the event is expected to attract around 520,000 visitors, including 200,000 overseas tourists, generating an estimated 1 trillion won, or $690 million in economic impact.
Our goal is not only to strengthen Korea's cultural industry, but also to bring young people around the world closer together through culture. That's why the 4 major K-pop companies have joined forces for the first time.
Many overseas fans say a large-scale festival featuring multiple K-pop artists would be a strong reason to visit Korea.
But the venue, I think they can make, I don't know how it's gonna look, but I think it should be big enough for at least hold, because K-pop fans are like a lot in here. But I do think it will attract more people, like, because I know a lot of people come here only to have concerts, because it's maybe...
So yeah, because I was actually talking to my husband, I was like, hey look, there's a Korean Coachella happening, like would you be interested? So we're planning on like maybe coming, but depending on where the stadium is. And
as Seoul Arena nears completion, expectations are growing that Korea can turn its global K-pop popularity into a sustainable concert tourism industry. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
And one of Seoul's premier performing arts venues is inviting foreign visitors backstage for a chance to experience Korean culture from a different perspective. Our Shin So-eun was there.
Imagine standing at the center of a grand stage as the lights sparkle and everyone's attention is fixed on you. For most people, a trip to the theater begins when the curtain rises. But here, visitors have a first-hand experience behind the scenes of the spectacle. Highlighting its theatrical legacy, the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts, located in Gwanghwamun Square in the heart of Seoul, invites foreigners to a backstage tour that brings Korea's culture together in one immersive event.
I see performances as one of the most powerful forms of experiential content. As artists at work behind the scenes during the day, I wanted to reveal the mechanisms behind the scenes through this tour.
Considers Korea's largest performing arts venue, the auditorium can accommodate more than 3,000 people. The magnificent sounds are all produced from one side of the auditorium, which drew inspiration from a Korean traditional string instrument called komungo.
I'm the type of person I want to learn something very deeply and very thoroughly. My impression after leaving here is that it's interesting how there's been some Western influence, but still faithfulness to Korean tradition.
Echoing the curved eaves of mainstream Korean architecture and orchestra, the Sejong Center hosts global art forms such as opera and ballet. Spaces normally hidden from the audience farther deepen visitors' curiosity.
Seeing the backstage areas and costumes up close was incredible. The theater was so beautiful that I'd love to come back for a performance.
Foreign visitors are drawn to the beauty of restraint in Korean dance.
In Korean dance, the fan can become a brush, a prop, or even a way to express the movement of air. I hope these details resonate with visitors and evoke a wide range of cultural emotions.
By stepping behind the curtain, audiences can get a glimpse of how Korean performances come to life. With foreign arrivals surpassing 10 million in the first half of the year, tours like this can turn theaters into a new K-culture destinations. 신소은, Arirang News.
This is the world now. European soccer's governing body has voted to boycott all World Cup tournaments if FIFA pushes forward with its plan to sell stakes to private investors. UEFA's 55 member nations voted unanimously on Thursday to boycott the 2027 Women's World Cup in Brazil and the 2030 Men's World Cup. The move aims to stop FIFA President Gianni Infantino's $20 billion FIFA subsidiary plan, which would hand 20% ownership to external investors, including Joshua Kushner's Thrive Capital. North America's governing body, CONCACAF, and its 41 member nations also rejected the plan on Thursday. The U.S. economy grew at a 1.5% annual rate from April through June, down from 2.1% in the first quarter and short of what forecasters expected. The drag came from the artificial intelligence boom as chips and data center equipment are largely built overseas, and imports count against the growth calculation. Trade alone subtracted a full percentage point. Household spending accelerated to a 3.2% pace, and business investment was robust. Inflation cooled in June to 3.7%, a decline from 4.1% in May. In Pakistan, a coal mine explosion has killed at least 11 miners. A methane gas explosion tore through the coal complex in Balochistan province on Thursday. 36 men were inside the section that collapsed. 25 of them are still unaccounted for. Rescue teams are digging more than a kilometer below the surface. The province's chief mines inspector says crews are still hoping to find survivors, but said, quote, chances are low. In Prague, zookeepers dumped tons of ice into the polar bear enclosure on Thursday amid the sweltering heat. The zoo started handing out ice 2 years ago as the number of extremely hot days piled up. Staff had planned this year's deliveries for July and August, but the first heat wave arrived early. And in June, the Czech Republic recorded its hottest day ever, close to 42 degrees Celsius on June 28th. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It'll have only taken a few minutes outside today before being drenched in sweat. The country is still in the grip of an intense heat wave. Earlier today, Yangsan in Gyeongsangnam-do Province soared to 41.4 degrees Celsius, setting a new all-time national temperature record. And the heat isn't letting up tomorrow either. Yangsan could climb back to around 40 degrees Celsius. And all that daytime heat isn't going anywhere after sunset, so make sure you're staying cool both day and night. Tomorrow, UV levels will climb into the very high category in many areas, and ozone levels will be bad nationwide. So try to avoid outdoor activities as much as you can and stay hydrated. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 26 degrees Celsius, Daejeon 25 and Daegu 27 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 34 degrees, Daegu 37 degrees, Busan 38 degrees. Early next week, the most intense heat will spread into western regions, including the capital. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. So thank you for now.